worth talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of Wichita, Kansas, across the entire Mid-America region. Welcome into it. It is a beautiful, a little bit cooler, but a beautiful Tuesday morning. You officially adjusted yourself into the new daylight savings time. Now we can properly and appropriately carpe diem all over this place, make it a good one, be productive throughout the day, because that's just the way we roll. Welcome into it. This is The Voice of Reason. I am Andy Hoosier. It's an honor to have you along today on a Tuesday morning. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, we are broadcasting live out of here, Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker KQAM, simulcasting on KGBT TV, channel 2610, and broadcasting across the entire Mid-America network. Welcome aboard today. Facebook Live, by the way, open as well. Social media, rocking and rolling. You can reach out however you'd like to do so. I love bringing you good news. It's hard to do sometimes. It is frustrating at times. It is not the easiest thing to do sometimes when it comes to politics, when it comes to current events, when it comes to social behavior, when it comes to policy making, when it comes to politicians being involved. It's very, very difficult to bring you good news. But we've seen good news. And talk radio needs to be able to adapt when we see good news. We need to be able to report good news rather than just complain about the bad things all the time. As you know, for the longest time, talk radio really is all about the complaining about the former president or the Democrats or the opposition or whatever the case is. But I want to bring you good news sometimes. And when we see it, we need to recognize it, because when we know something's working, it's kind of the positive reinforcement. When we know something's working, we need to say that, hey, look, it's working. Let's go ahead and continue on with that kind of agenda. And as you know, the economy is doing very, very well. When we see low unemployment rates, we see industry coming back, we see tax rates that are going down, we see people rising out of poverty, we see people going back to work, we see businesses wanting to stay in the country rather than try and leave and send a manufacturing plant down across the borders. We are seeing positive movement with people actually gaining money, gaining revenue, and actually going back to work. It's a positive thing. Why? And it's because of the tax breaks. Why? It's because of the major tax cut that President Trump and the Republicans did right before the end of the year. Now, we know that it's not finalized. They have to tweak some things. We were talking with our tax person filing our taxes over the weekend, and she had mentioned that, yeah, you know what, we have the new plan for the Trump tax plan, and we're going to be able to compare to what you're going to get this year compared to what you're going to get next year under the new tax plan. The problem is that once they passed it, because they were in such a hurry, that they have to actually go back and adjust a few things. So some of it may change. And it's always going to change because it's politics and politicians. And as soon as there's a new election and new people get in there, then they're going to try and change it up anyways. But that's not the point. The point is that right now we're seeing really great things because of the tax break that we're actually under as corporations, as individuals, as really just anybody across the nation. That's the positive news, and Democrats don't like that. We said that if the tax plan actually works, then we're going to see Donald Trump get reelected. We're going to see the midterm elections being very much in a favor for the Republicans. We're going to see the Democrats continue to lose. They have yet to win a solid election, and we've gone over that many times before. They have yet to win any election that actually matters on the national level. They won the governorship of Virginia. After that state went blue for Hillary Clinton anyways, doesn't really matter. They had their first LGBT member go into the state legislature in Virginia. They were very proud of that. But again, shows that they are predominantly on the progressive side, and that state's kind of gone more blue. It's a pendulum. That state's always a swing state. It's going to go blue for a while. They're going to get upset. They're going to vote in Republicans, and the pendulum's going to swing again. That's the way politics works. But right now for Virginia, there's really no surprise. Oh, what about the Senate seat in Alabama? No, Senate seat in Alabama. Name one issue that they actually ran on down there with Roy Moore and with the opponent. Name one policy issue that they actually ran on in Alabama. It didn't work. They actually ran on the fact that, oh, look, there's a pedophile over there. Vote for me. And they ended up winning. They have yet to win. And then they said, the blue wave. Remember the blue wave coming down in Texas? It's going to be the blue wave that's going to change Texas, and that we're going to see it more progressive. Ted Cruz is going to lose his primary seat, which didn't happen. Oh, the Democrats are going to rise up. We're going to show up. We're going to vote in mass. It's going to be a huge election. You should really be prepared for the Democrats' rise. And if the general election would have been held and they consolidated all the votes as compared to the primary, they would have lost every single seat that they were running for. Every single one that they currently do not hold, they would have continued to lose. They did not show up. And those were the activists. Those were the excited individuals. They were the ones trying to rally everyone to go out and vote. That's the way that they ran, and it failed miserably. They're not going to do well in this election, and they're going to do even less well. They're going to do even worse. You like that, less well? They're going to do even worse if the economy continues to tick up. If the economy continues to grow, we're going to see Republicans have another wave of victory. And then we see this, according to Politico, Trump wants a phase 2 of the tax cuts. More good news. A perfect way to start the morning. That's a perfect way to go in and say, look, not only are we seeing one of the greatest economies in a really, really long time, we're seeing 3.5-4% GDP growth. We're seeing people go back to work. We're seeing things happen. We're seeing great things work. We're going to do another tax cut. We're going to do another wave of tax. Now, I don't know if the Republican leadership will do it. It was very difficult to get the last one through. To do another one is going to be very difficult. But that's why we have to stand firm on conservative values and conservative principles. Look, when we know it works, we need to stand true to it. You don't try and reinvent the wheel just because you get a little nervous. You don't try and reinvent the wheel and do something different just because you're afraid of losing power or afraid of losing what you already have. I know that when you grow and grow, let's say, for example, you are an actor or you're a celebrity or you're a singer. When you grow, at first, you really don't care. You're trying to make your ground. You're trying to make your platform. You're trying to gain your base. You're trying to set your sound. You're trying to set your theme, who you are. If you're a singer, you're trying to set exactly what you're going to sound like, what your sound really is. If you're an actor, you're trying to set your persona of what you're going to be on stage or in front of the camera. You're trying to set that. You're doing whatever it takes, and you don't care. You step out of that comfort zone a little bit. You expand. You test the waters. You do different things to see what actually works until you make it and you hit that level to where you're off and running, and it's success from there. Once you make the success, though, then you're afraid to step out of those comfort zones because you don't want to lose what you already have. Before, you didn't care. You didn't have anything to lose anyways. All you had was up to gain. All you could do was work your way up. Now you've made it to the top. Where do you go from there? Now you don't like to step out of your comfort zone. The same thing happens in politics. Once you've made it, once you're in elected office, once you're doing your thing, you don't like to move out of those parameters. You like to float sometimes. You like to still fight for the values, but don't really change what those values really are, which could be a good thing. I don't want someone to go in saying that they're going to run as a conservative, but then start turning around and start voting as a progressive. I don't want to see that. They want to stay in those comfort zones, but at the same time, we get scared. And when you get scared, then you start widening those parameters a little bit. And when we see the Democrats rising up and we see loud voices from the progressive side of the aisle, then you start wondering, I wonder if they're going to start changing that tide. I wonder if they're going to start changing that momentum. And then you start widening those parameters. And if you're conservative, then you say, oh, look, conservatism may not be very popular. I need to be a little wary here. I need to start widening those parameters. The Republicans in Congress right now, they're very concerned about their reelection. And all we hear about in the mainstream media is the fact that Democrats are going to do a blue wave across the nation. They're going to pick up a whole bunch of seats in the Senate, and they're going to get the majority. They're going to pick up a whole bunch of seats in the House, and they're going to narrow that margin to Republican majority, and that they're going to be able to obstruct President Donald Trump, and that they're going to stop everything the Republicans are trying to do. They're going to reverse the tax cuts. They're going to reverse any type of productivity that we've done. They're going to re-implement Obamacare, and they're going to go down this road. Because the failed conservative experience, and that's not the case. Stick to your guns. We know what works. Donald Trump passed a massive tax cut, and we saw positive growth. We're seeing major growth. We saw positive growth the first year of President Trump before we did the tax cuts, just with him saying that's what he wanted to do. Stay true to your core. Stay true. If you're worried, it's not changing the message of what you want. It's changing how you apply the message to the general public for them to understand what you're trying to do. There are very few fringe minority activists who are wanting socialism, who are wanting high taxes, who are wanting big government utopia or control or regulations. There are very few of them. They just have the loudest voice. Stick to your guns. As we see Donald Trump say that he wants a phase 2 in the tax cuts, then we're seeing the Democrats saying that they want to release a tax hike plan. Congressional Democrats released a detailed tax hike plan that they promised to implement if given the majority control of the House and the Senate in the 2018 midterm elections. Look, this election this year, nationally, statewide, all across the different states, locally, whatever elections are coming up this November, is going to be about the ideology of taxes. It's going to be about the ideology of regulation. And there's going to be the tear. This is going to be the true and tried on what's actually going to be believed in the nation. This is going to be the election. We thought it was last election. No, it's going to be this election. And we'll talk about that when we come back. But the division between conservatism and progressivism, this is where it's going to show its ugly face in this election this November.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Ag News from Mid-America Ag Network. Ag News brought to you by Kubota and your Kansas Kubota dealers. See them today.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason. Happy Tuesday morning to you. Making it happen today. Better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even an energy drink. That's what we're here for, to get you woken up, ready to go for the day. Let's carpe diem. Let's have a good one today. What do you say? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you're more than welcome to do so. At the bottom of the hour, in about 10 minutes or so, we're going to be playing an interview with George Whitmer. He joined the show yesterday. He's with Race for Kansas, talking about trying to reintroduce horse racing and dog racing in the state of Kansas. As you know, that died off about, 8-10 years ago. And the reason it did, as he mentions in the interview, is because of the tax rates. Because you apparently had to pay a higher tax rate to gamble for horse and dog racing than you did at a casino. Casino rates is 22%, and they raised up the dog and horse racing tax rates to a 40% tax rate. Why? Well, why don't you just trace the money and look at the special interests who thought that they may be losing revenue if there was another outlet for gambling in the state. So we'll have that interview coming up at the bottom of the hour. George Whitmer with Race for Kansas. I did not realize that there were that many horse breeders in the state of Kansas, which is kind of fascinating to me. So we'll hear about all that coming up in just a little bit. As we talk about the taxes, and that's a perfect example of that, being the 40% tax rate for gambling on horse racing. How dare you try and race that horse? Let's go ahead and tax you 40% when you gamble on that. As we talk about the tax rates, we're seeing Donald Trump say that he wants a phase 2 of the tax plan. Republicans shying away from that, not commenting on it and saying that they actually want to do that. Progressives saying we want to actually increase the tax rates again and reverse all of it because we hate productivity and we hate the revenue growing and we hate the economy booming and we hate people going back to work. We hate all that. So we're going to raise your taxes. So let's look at the statewide level. What's the state doing? Oh, yeah. The state of Kansas. Kansas House Committee finds heavy demand for imposition on an online sales tax. Let's increase your property tax. Let's increase your sales tax. Let's increase your income tax. Let's increase this tax. Let's just increase taxes because we see the economy doing well. So let's go ahead and take advantage of that, right? This election this year is not going to be necessarily about Republican, Democrat, but it's really going to be the big difference between progressivism and conservatism. The ideological war, what's going to come out and win and be victorious this year? Is it going to be the conservative Republican that stays in office or maybe gets in office that says we're going to continue to fight for limited government and less taxes? We're going to fight for that because we see it working. It's working right now, and we're going to implement that. Or we're going to see maybe a Republican say, I'm getting a little scared. There's a change in the dynamic of politics today. There's some progressives that are yelling really, really loud. We need to start pandering to them a little bit. Let me tell you something. If you're a Republican and you're looking at running for office or you're looking at running for re-election in the state of Kansas or even anywhere in the nation, but right now we're talking to anybody in the state of Kansas, If you're trying to pander to an independent or to a Democrat, let me tell you something. No matter what you say, no matter what you do, you will not win over a Democrat to vote Republican. It's just not going to happen. It never happens. The Republican Party really has shot itself in the foot in many different situations to where we've tried to broaden the umbrella too much because we need to gain more people, right? We need to win more people over, which is true. But we need to win them over by preaching what we believe in, not by changing what we believe in to be able to pander to new people. That's what progressives do. That's what Democrats do. And that's not what we do. We stand on a principle and we stick to it. Limited government, less taxes, less regulation. That's what we're about. Now, I still have a hard time personally understanding what a moderate Republican actually looks like. I don't know. To me, it's very black and white, very cut and dry. Either when you have a situation in front of you, if you're an elected position and you see a bill come to you on your desk and it says, we're going to raise taxes, then as a conservative who supports less government, less regulation, less taxes, then you would say, no. End of story. Not a, yeah, but, not a, I have a medium, not a, no, just a flat out, we're going to raise taxes? No, we're not going to raise taxes on anybody. No. N-O, no. End of story. There's no happy medium between there. You can't say we're going to marginally raise your tax rate and then we're going to be happy so I can still hold on to conservative values on less taxes, but then turn around and say that we're going to raise your taxes. It doesn't work that way. If you have a bill in front of you as an elected person, an elected office position, and it says we're going to increase the regulation from this industry onto something else, onto this type of industry from this agency. As a Republican believing in the principles and the mission statement of the Republican Party, then we would say no. And no, there's not a happy medium in between there. You can't do it. It's either, maybe I'm black and white, cut and dry, but it's either one or the other. Now, that does not mean that we can't compromise at times because we have to. And I'm not talking about compromising our values, but I'm talking about compromising in a bill. If there's potential for a long-term goal to get to where we need to, then fine. And we can continue to fight that way. We can't be the purists in that sense, and I'm not saying that. But I don't understand how we can say there's a tax increase, because once you impose a tax increase, then it doesn't necessarily go away, and you're going in the wrong direction. Now, if you're saying that, you know what, there's going to be a tax increase because everybody's voting for a tax increase, but I'm able to drop the percentage of that a little bit, and that's going to be the compromise. And guess what? Then we can turn around and fight for another reduction of that tax increase a little bit later. It's going to be hard, but I would prefer to vote for a 3% tax increase as opposed to the 6% tax increase that they actually did. That's a compromise. And I would still vote no, depending on how high that is. But you know what? That depends on the situation, too. Got some calls on the line. Stay here. I know I kind of talked and kind of went too deep into the woods on that one, but we need to really set on what we believe in as conservatives going into this election and as Republicans as a whole.
It's time for Reason.
If this is a victory for Democrats thinking they have the momentum again, then let them have it, because that's as far as they're going to go. In a state that was already won by Democrats, already predominantly blue, in a state where the Republican did not want to embrace current Republican trends. If you're not going to do that, then you're not going to win. End of story. It's very simple.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Republican trends can be a very good thing or can be a very dangerous thing, but it's up to you and I to actually set those trends, because we are the voters, we are the constituents, we are the ones that actually make that happen in some way, shape, or form. I didn't confuse you with that last segment, did I? Vote no on tax increases unless it's a compromise of what used to be and what could have been even worse. And welcome to politics, ladies and gentlemen. We need to set the tone of what Republicanism actually is going to be in this next election. It's going to be very important for us to figure that out, and we need to figure it out very soon. The primaries are just around the corner, and only you and I can actually set the stage for that one. We got about a minute or so before I want to play this interview, but let's go ahead and take a phone call, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. This is Helen.
Good morning, Helen. How are you today?
I'm doing just great.
Good.
I think progressives should be called oppressives, because their policies or politics are very oppressive to we the people.
Well, that is very true. I mean, when they say that they're progressives, they like to use the terms that don't actually ever apply to them or that actually applies to somebody else. When they use the term Republicans are racist, that usually means that they themselves are the racist, because historically progressives and Democrats have been the racist party. They had the KKK. They had all the other organizations that oppressed the different minority groups. So I appreciate that, Helen, very much, because you're right. They use the terms that actually never apply to them for themselves. Open-minded? Yeah, tell me the last time that you heard a progressive actually be open-minded about a certain idea because they believed in more, they actually appreciated someone else's opinion on an issue without calling them a fascist, a Nazi, or an oppressive bigot. Name that last time that it's actually happened. It hasn't happened. That's a really good point. Appreciate that very much. I want to shift gears a little bit. George Wingert, he is with Race for Kansas. We sat down and chatted with him yesterday on horse and dog racing in the state of Kansas, why it's gone, and what can we do to bring it back. This is George Wingert, what he had to say yesterday right here on The Voice of Reason. He's George Wingert on the line. George, good morning to you. How are you?
Very good, my friend. Appreciate having the opportunity to visit with your listeners.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. The question is, what is the Race for Kansas, George?
The Race for Kansas is a group of people that want to bring back to Kansas the horse racing industry and the dog racing industry. The greyhound industry, as a lot of your listeners will know, and some of them may not, is basically centered in Abilene, Kansas, and they raise more greyhounds in the Dickinson County of Kansas than anywhere else in, I guess, the world, especially the United States.
Wow! And
ship them to all over the world.
Well, the question is, why did it go away?
Well, because of the tax implications that were started in Senate Bill 66. The casinos have a tax rate at 22%, and the tracks at a 44%, at 40%, and it was just not economically feasible to have that much difference between the tax rates. So that was the real reason behind the whole thing. Why that when the Senate bill was passed, they thought really that probably it would work, but it wouldn't. So they the 4 tracks have all closed. The tracks in Wichita, Frontenac, down in Pittsburgh, Kansas, close to Pittsburgh, and the Woodlands. And our organization is wanting to reduce the tax rate so it's equal, so it's 22% both for the casinos and the racinos. And the racinos, some people think that the racinos would have an unfair advantage of them if they got down to 22, but those of us in the business think that what's good for one is good for another. Actually, it's the tax rate on the slot machines,
sure.
So it's not on the other things. So, and the Race for Kansas is made up of a group of horse breeders, both thoroughbred and quarter horse breeders, all over the state of Kansas, and then also the greyhound breeders all over the state of Kansas. Practically every county in Kansas has either a thoroughbred, a quarter horse, or a greyhound breeder in it. So
wow,
our group reaches every county in Kansas.
I had no idea it was that big in the state. When did these taxes take effect, and when did these tracks start dying off?
Well, they started dying off back about 10 years ago. When Senate bill was passed, it was passed with the idea that it would save the tracks and make them financially feasible. Well, if the tax would have been the same, it would have been. But when it was put at the disparaging difference, why it just made it financially unfeasible to do it. We still have a great racing business of producing races, and there's like a great thoroughbred racing thing in Johnson County, the Ratke's back there, and then out in western Kansas, I think it's Scott City, and I should have looked it up. They have a farm out there, especially, and I think it's just as it's interesting to me, the little things that you pick up. They've got out there. They named one of their horses Fort Leonard after Larned, Kansas. It ran in the Derby 3 or 4 years ago, and last year they had a horse running in the Derby named McCracken. That's after 2 towns. If your listeners in western Kansas know where those 2 towns are, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. And they've been breeding thoroughbreds out there for a long time and been very successful. And there's lots of others that breed thoroughbreds now and quarter horses and race in Oklahoma other states and Iowa and Minnesota
Sure.
and all, and we'd just like to bring it back to the tracks and list. One of the interesting things is Eureka over there has Eureka Downs, which we'd bring it back, would be great for the people in that area.
Well, it would make sense to be able to lower the tax rates, as you mentioned, back to where they were, comparable to any other type of casino or any type of gambling in that sense. And that way we could open these back up, because it sounds like we have breeders all over the place in the state of Kansas that are now having to be forced outside of the state to go other places. And we're not being able to actually enjoy them here at home, which doesn't make any sense to me. This could be a huge attribute and actually be a revenue generator for the state, to be some entertainment value for different parts of the state, and for the hobbyists who enjoy the horses, who enjoy the greyhounds, who enjoy this type of industry. They don't have to travel all over the rest of the country in order to just enjoy it when they could right in their backyard here.
That's absolutely right. Now, there's also a group that think that greyhounds are abused and all, and I kind of always smile on that. Last year, the greyhounds have an auction in the spring and the fall. Last fall, I walked into the auction in Abilene it was about halfway through it, and as I walked in, Tracy Wiley was selling a dog, and it brought $19,000.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, whew, I said, that dog should have never been abused, or none of her been to get up to that. And so anyway, I smiled and waved at Tracy, and though she came around a few minutes later, and I said, I want to visit with you a minute. And she says, well, I'll be right back. So anyway, in about 15 minutes, she came back, and a friend of mine, Doug Lawrence, and I were standing there visiting, and so I was congratulating her on selling a dog for $19,000, and Doug says, well, tell her about the other dog that sold earlier. It bought $41,000. And I said, I want to get your picture of these dogs. And she kind of smiled, and she says, I just put them on a trailer, and they're going by Junction City. They're going to Wheeling, West Virginia, to the dog track back there. They'll be running back there in a week.
Sure.
And so, and all the greyhound farms I've ever been on their dogs are well kept. They're well thought of. They're respected by the greyhounds twice a year, and any abuse or anything. And when they're retired, 90-some% of them are adopted out as pets, which makes they make a great pet.
Oh, I bet.
They're the right temperament, and they're big enough that kids can walk around on them, and they like them. And now every so often, of people that don't understand this, the greyhound is liable to lick your 2-year-old in the face, and the 2-year-old's giving it a hug. But I never known anybody to get sick by loving a dog.
No,
if
absolutely.
you don't like dogs, why? You're missing something in life.
Well, then there's that. Sure. We got a message on Facebook asking a question about the tax rate, the difference between the slot machines and for the horse and dog racing. Is the tax rate, would it be the same, or would it be a different tax rate between the different two if we ended up making this happen?
It would be the same. It would be the
tax
same.
Rate. Okay.
Yeah, right. There's the 4 casinos in Kansas, and they all pay 22%, and that's what the racinos would pay.
Sure.
22%. One of the things I'd like to point out too, and this is just interesting to me from my years of experience in Kansas, that 2 of the casinos, in fact 3 of them, are actually owned by people out of state. One Boyd Gaming in Las Vegas, and the France family, and Penn National in Pennsylvania, and the profits from those, which is about $90 million from Boyd's down at Kansas Star, goes to Las Vegas, and the others go to about $60 million go to that to Pennsylvania and Florida. And Phil Ruffin, who owns the tracks that we had here, he's actually invested most of his money in Kansas in different ventures and all. And over the years, he's had convenience stores in a lot of the counties in Kansas, not near all of them, but probably 15 or 20. And he spends a lot of money in Wichita and other activities. So he'd actually keep most of those tracks. The profits in those tracks would stay in Kansas, which is,
sure,
to me, a big difference for the tax dollars' sake.
Sure. Talk about the organization Race for Kansas itself a little bit. I know you guys were involved with Equifest and with our Mid-America Ag Network, with our network that we covered the Equifest kind of event itself, but you guys were involved in that as well. What kind of response have you been getting?
We've been getting tremendous response. It's kind of interesting when you tell the message out to individuals, and they stand and or listen to you what you're actually doing. we're made up basically of horse breeders, dog breeders, and veterinarians, feed store people, all over Kansas, and some from outside of Kansas that basically would they kind of grin and say, if you'd ever get your racing going, we'd bring our horses or dogs to Kansas and race.
Mm-hmm.
So and then the roughening companies in Wichita, who I actually work for, are members of the racing association group that sponsor things like Equifest, and we're going to hold a meeting down in Emporia the 27th. It's primarily a horse meeting, but we'll be part of it to promote not only the racing horse industry, but the horse industry and whole. And part of our deal is for the Kansas Horse Council. Part of all the revenue that we would generate would go to the Horse Council. That would go to help all the horse industry. Primarily, it started off to help we put it in there to help the junior wrangler horse associations in Kansas. So we hope to cover a lot of the bases of anything to do with horses, and any organization that's supporting it, why we try to be there to assist them.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Back into the Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 1. Can you believe it? Goes by way too fast. It's just like the blink of an eye as you're sipping on your coffee or reading the newspaper, listening to the radio, doing the thing this morning. Well, I know you're excited. You're happy about the day. Let's go to News with Rick. What do you say?
Boom. It's the humanity. Ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, good morning, Andy. Good morning, everyone. A $1.5 billion settlement has been reached in a class action lawsuit covering tens of thousands of farmers, grain handling facilities, and ethanol plants that sued Swiss agribusiness giant Syngenta over its introduction of a genetically engineered corn seed. The plaintiff said Syngenta's decision to introduce its modified Viptera and Duracade corn seed strains to the U.S. grain market for the 2011 growing season before having approval for import by China in 2014 caused price drops for several years. The final decision on that case now has to be signed off on by a judge in Kansas. The stepmother of a missing Wichita boy asking a judge to lower her bond so she can be released from jail. An attorney for 26-year-old Emily Glass said in a motion filed Friday that her $50,000 bond is too high. Glass is the stepmother of 5-year-old Lucas Hernandez, who hasn't been seen since February 17th. Glass remains jailed in the Sedgwick County Jail on allegations of child endangerment pertaining to another child. And this Saturday marks
St. Patty's Day.
Patty's Day.
Yeah!
Now that means last Saturday marked another day that a lot of people celebrate.
Pre-St. Patty's Day.
It's called Fake Patty's Day.
Well, that too.
Actually, if you want to be correct. And police say they arrested 47 people and issued 494 citations during this year's Fake Patty's Day celebration in Manhattan, Kansas. The Riley County Police Department said in a news release yesterday that law enforcement responded to 287 calls from citizens during a period spanning from 7 o'clock Friday evening until 6 o'clock Sunday morning. Police issued 208 citations for possession of an open container, 13 DUIs, 10 disorderly conduct charges, 7 for unlawful possession or consumption by a minor, 2 for smoking of the marijuana, and 54 citations for possession of alcohol by a minor. So quite a party going on in the Little Apple this weekend. And tomorrow marks the opening practice at Intrust Bank Arena here in Wichita for the NCAA tournament. Tournament play gets underway in our city, the largest city in Kansas, on Thursday. Law enforcement say they are ready. Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office assisting the Wichita Police Department and others as up to 25,000 people additional descend on Wichita Thursday through Saturday. That's the news. I'm out of here.
I do have to say that I love the fact that we have a fake Patty's Day or the pre-St. Patty's Day celebration a week beforehand to prepare ourselves for the actual celebration the week after. So it's kind of like the tease of, the big workout before the actual event. It is expanding the liver before you actually consume for real on Saturday.
A practice run, if you will.
I do like that fact, Rick, with the news.
And that's the news.
Appreciate it very much there. Hour number 2 is coming up. We got a lot to get to today, as a lot of things happening locally here, as you know, and as you mentioned, and as Rick just mentioned, the getting prepared for the NCAA tournament, basketball tournament here in the Wichita area. Everybody's all excited about it. We will talk a little bit about that today because there's some fun news on the political side of it. See, we can make everything political. We can look at the political side of it, especially with San Diego State or San Diego University or whatever they are coming to Wichita for the tournament and the non-state funded travel that California is having to the state of Kansas. Because remember, we are terrible, evil, bigoted individuals in Podunk, Kansas, and therefore state-funded travel is banned from the state of California to the state of Kansas and a few other states around the nation. So it'll be really fun to see how they actually get here and what fundulations that they're going to be using to be able to get here for that tournament. So we will talk about that. Plus, an interesting story out of the national level with President Donald Trump with a comment that he's made that, of course, has everybody all up in arms. No, it does not have anything to do with Kim Jong-un. No, it does not have anything to do with the tax cuts. As he says, phase number 2 of tax cuts coming to you in a month, coming soon in a city near you. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But lots to get to today. This is your show. As always, everybody on the western part of the state, have a great day. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is The Voice of Reason. Hour number 2. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
Why should we feel guilty for arresting you? Why should we be like, you know what? You're okay. You're a chemist. You're a teacher. You're contributing to society. Let's just let it slide. Why? We have laws for a reason, and it makes no sense to me why we would just say, you know what? We need to reform our immigration policy, and it's just too stringent. We're just going to say, rule of law, hey, here's a window. Let's go ahead and throw it out there.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
What I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of South Central Kansas here in Wichita, Kansas. Welcome aboard. Great to have you along today. Right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard. Good morning to you. Great to have you along on a Tuesday. Hopefully you've adjusted yourself. Your internal clock has been realigned a little bit. It was difficult, honestly, yesterday. It was difficult going to bed because I go to bed early. I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I am laying in bed by 7:30, 8 o'clock. Hopefully asleep by between 8 and 8:30. That's my goal. Now, that doesn't always happen, but that's the goal. That's what I try and make happen so I can actually get some decent sleep. It is very difficult sometimes because, with the events going on at nights, which I haven't gone to in a while, but I need to start getting back into that. And it's just very difficult. But when I'm laying down at 7:30 at night, it's still light out now. So you got to put on the darker blinds on the window, and you got to find ways to be able to just tune it out and zone out and just be able to get to sleep. And it was a little bit different last night, but hopefully you've been able to adjust your internal clock a little bit. You're back at it. You're ready to go again. They say 3 days for your adjustment for the daylight savings. I say give it one good day, and heck, baby, we're going to make this happen. Why? Because we don't complain. We're not the victims. We don't like trying to complain about everything. We are the doers. We are the getter-doners, and we're the ones that actually are the ones making society work because our tax money gets depended on by so many other individuals. Welcome in 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Coming up in about a half hour, 45 minutes, Bryan Frye will get our city council update for the city of Wichita. Along with hour number 3, our guests that we had booked for today just emailed me and they dropped out. So we may get a state legislator on as a last-minute guest to jump on and give us an update from Topeka. So looking forward to doing that in just a little bit. But I want to ask you something. This is kind of an interesting topic. I came across this story, and I didn't know what to think about it at first. But the more I read it, the more I actually kind of understand it, and I kind of like this idea. And I want to get your thoughts because is it too extreme? From the Washington Post, Trump administration studies seeking the death penalty for drug dealers. If you see a drug dealer in the nation, I mean, come on. We have massive amounts of trafficking happening in the Wichita area. We have lots of drugs. The drug task force is very large. And I'm not talking about marijuana here. I'm talking, unless you're doing it in very large quantities, but I'm talking about the harder drugs. I'm talking about addiction. I'm talking about the bad things that really destroy people's lives. If you remember, there's a lot of different organizations in the Wichita area that try and fight addiction, that try and house people that may be homeless that have had issues with addiction. And it's our duty to try and help society get back on track and get our feet grounded again and be able to move forward. And we cannot do that if there are the massive amounts of drug lords coming across the borders and trying to sell these drugs and getting people addicted to them, whether it is the massive amounts of marijuana, whether it's cocaine, whether it's ecstasy, no matter what it is. There's a serious epidemic, and then we could even talk about, if you want to get into the, like we did before, the controlled substances and the pharmaceutical industry and the opioids going on from there. But really, right now, I really want to focus on the drug dealers and the big problems we have in society. And President Trump looking at a little more harsh punishment for individuals wanting to try and trade drugs. This is a serious issue, even here in the Wichita area. If you notice, we have massive amounts of drug problems in the area. I'm not saying that that's what everybody's doing, but I am saying that is an epidemic because this is where, as you know, they come up from the southern border, they come here, and then they distribute amongst the rest of the country because we're right in the heart of the nation. And they can take it to wherever they need to from here. So here's what the story has to say. The Trump administration studying new policy that could allow prosecutors to seek the death penalty for drug dealers. According to people with knowledge of the discussion, a sign that the White House wants to make a strong statement in addressing the opioid crisis. President Trump last week suggested executing drug dealers as a way to make a dent in opioid addiction. Opioids killed nearly 64,000 people in 2016. Trafficking quantities of fentanyl, a capital crime right now because even small amounts of the drug can be very fatal to individuals. Some countries have very tough penalties. The ultimate penalty that they have, much less of a drug problem than we do. They do have a lot different ways to address this. Now, we have become kind of the touchy-feely emotional country. And I'm not saying that's necessarily too bad of a thing at times, but we have forgotten that sometimes we need to have the harsh punishment. We've gone from saying, you've committed a crime, you need to be punished appropriately, to, well, you've committed a crime, let's try and rehabilitate you, and then you should feel really bad about yourself and you should fix it. That's kind of where we're at right now, and I don't necessarily want to go down that road. Yes, people need the second chance. We're all about second chances. And we're not talking about the person that has a couple ounces of marijuana and ends up selling it to his buddy. I'm not talking about that. I don't want to go down the marijuana trail. Unless you're saying, you know what, there's 50 pounds of it in my trunk and I'm going to distribute it to everybody and I'm going to start making massive sales on this. Should we be punishing individuals a little bit more intensely as a nation? Or have the opportunity to at least do that? As we read the incarceration rates in the state of Kansas, 70% of the people incarcerated in the state in our state prisons are individuals with drug trafficking problems. Drug consumption, drug trafficking, something related to hard drugs. And as we're talking about taxpayer money funding these problems, we could look at it that way. We could look at how it affects the community and how when we have look at what California is doing. California, instead of actually saying these drugs are actually really, really bad, they're saying, yeah, they're bad, but you know what? We don't want people dying in the street by an overdose of them. So let's create a clinic that they can come in and they can get a dosage of the hard illegal drug. Like ecstasy, like cocaine, like whatever. They can come in, they can get a small dose of it administered by a nurse, and that way we can have it controlled, and therefore they're not going to overdose in the streets, and they're going to die underneath a bridge. What? Are you kidding me? That's what I don't want to see. As opposed to the other nations that just don't tolerate that type of behavior. According to drugabuse.com, the top 20 countries with the harshest drug laws, Malaysia, if you sell drugs, that can be punishable by death. Just for having the drug in your possession, you can be fined, jailed, or even deported. Drunk driving is also punishable very harshly in Malaysia. How about China? China, if you're caught with drugs, you can be forced to attend drug rehab in a facility run by the government. Execution is the penalty for some drug crimes as well. Execution. Vietnam. Drug crimes are taken very seriously. If you're arrested with more than 1.3 pounds of heroin, you will automatically, without due process, be executed. Iran is not known to be tolerant of the criminal offenses in general, and drug offenses are no different. The use of opium is a particular problem in Iran, in parts because it produces the neighboring Afghanistan. If you're caught with drugs in Iran, the best case scenario is a large fine, and the worst case scenario is the death penalty. In Thailand, those trafficking narcotics may be put to death. Dubai is known for its intolerant views on drug abuse. Many prescription drugs that are legal in parts of the world that can get you put in jail in Dubai. It's typically the drug offenders to be sentenced to 4 years in prison and then deported. Failing a drug test can be grounds for incarceration, even if you're not in possession of any drug, even if you just fail a drug test. Don't try and use the excuse the other lady used about a week or so ago, saying that her medicinal meth ended up making her fail her drug test. Saudi Arabia. The sales of drugs in Saudi Arabia almost result in the death penalty. Alcohol use is illegal in Saudi Arabia, and possession of use or alcohol or drugs can be punishable by public flogging, fines, lengthy imprisonment, or even death. Are you getting a trend here? These nations don't tolerate it. They're very, very strict when it comes to their laws when it comes to drug abuse. They don't want the trafficking. They don't want the use. Why? Because people that are actually part of the drug usage or even the drug distribution are not very productive to society. And yet we become very, very soft in the United States. To where now, possession, can you go to prison, slap on the wrist. Next time you go to prison a little bit longer. Next time you go to prison a little bit longer. Pretty soon they're just so used to being in prison that they end up finding a way to do drugs in prison. We need to nip it at its butt. When we talk about enforcing the southern border, when we talk about enforcing immigration, when we talk about closing the human trafficking, when we talk about closing the weapons trafficking, or even the drug trafficking, maybe we should have a little bit tougher punishments. And President Trump looking at that. Now, of course, he's been said that he's now a Nazi and a fascist for wanting to come down and kill people because he's using the police state to try and scare people into abiding by the law. But when are we going to start abiding by the law? Interesting conversation. I want to get your thoughts on this. 316-721-8255. Let's go to line number 1 here. Good morning. What's your name?
Scott.
Hey, good morning, Scott. How are you?
Well, to me, it sounds like you're anti-capitalist because, I mean, this is a capitalist venture. Making drugs and selling drugs is an organized process, and people want to make money. They don't care about people dying.
But is it legal?
As long as you're making money, that's what counts.
Scott, is it legal? Capitalism is all about, yes, making a profit within the laws of what you're allowed to do. That's why there's a big difference between capitalism and crony capitalism, to where the corporation that may try and use the government for its benefit, that may be quote unquote capitalism because they're finding a way for a profit, but it's immoral. Look, there are moral parameters when it comes to capitalism. Crony capitalism is not one of them. Black market capitalism is not one of them either. I'm not in support of black market capitalism.
Well, one thing about it is black market capitalism or illegal capitalism supports legal capitalism. The drugs support the legal system in this country. It's a known fact.
Wait, say that again. So black market capitalism of selling drugs like selling it like cocaine or ecstasy, that supports the legal system?
It supports the legal system. When you pay your bills, when you buy clothes, when you buy houses, all that money is in the legal system, but you use illegal means to get that money. Just like the guy that does the saving and loans. I mean, they just did it the same way. They just did it more sophistication.
Okay,
But
sure.
the
So
St.
yeah,
Jerome
you
guys,
still
the guy
made
who did that. They were the same way.
Sure, you made a revenue by selling drugs, and then you just reinvested it into the capitalist system by buying products. But the fact is, you still gained that money illegally. There's the big difference between capitalism, crony capitalism, and black market capitalism. And again, if you're playing outside of the parameters of the law, whether it is using policy from the government to benefit your company specifically, or whether it's selling drugs illegally, that's not what the capitalist system's about, and we can't be supporting something like that.
Yeah, but see, you got to remember that in the history of the United States, it was always money first. And so whatever means you got to do to get that money, and whatever means you got to do to pay off the politicians, which a lot of them are willing to be paid off, and you buy the police force, and you support them and get them to do what you want them to do, so they look the other way while you're doing what you're doing. And then the laws are made to where you can only get 5 years, even though you stole $20 billion. I mean, come on now. Let's be realistic.
Well, and that's why we need more harsher punishments. Now, look, I mean, that hasn't been just the norm of the United States since the founding of that. The founding fathers were very stringent on the laws because they created them themselves, and they wanted the capitalist system to actually play because they realized capitalism is the greatest form of an economy that we could possibly have, and we didn't want crony capitalism, and they were very wary, and they wrote about it, about being very wary about crony capitalism.
You got organizations, you got pharmaceutical companies that are killing people. But as long as they're turning a profit, they can pay off who they need to pay off.
But it's not illegal. But see, that's the problem. It's not illegal. Now,
well, you pay them off, it ain't illegal. You're right.
But I don't understand how it could, what they're doing even could be illegal. Now, I agree with you that we need to reform the pharmaceutical companies for sure. I mean, we need to look at the price of them. We need to look at not just handing out pills every time that we have a cough or that we have an achy knee or whatever the case is. I mean, we need to look at definitely reforming that. But what they're doing is not illegal, nor has it been illegal. I mean, they're not paying anybody off to allow what they're doing to be illegal. They're making a product that people are buying. And it's
remember, in this country, cocaine was legal at one time. Where you think Coca-Cola came from? It was legal at one time.
Well, sure, and but the fact is,
the money they need to make, then they say, okay, now we're going to make it illegal, so can't anybody else go this route?
But the fact is, yeah, it's illegal now. I appreciate the call, Scott. We got to take a break, but but I mean, there's a difference between capitalism and black market capitalism. We're not there now. Look, the people have definitely tried that. It's human nature to try and cut the corners a little bit, to try and gain the advantage in a capitalist system, and we do have to be wary of that. Then one duty that the government's supposed to be involved in when it comes to the economy is making sure there are no monopolies, making sure people are not committing any type of fraud or trying to escape the system. That's why we went after someone like Al Capone, or we went after the Ponzi schemes, or we went after these sorts of different things where they've tried to get the upper hand against somebody else, and they've tried to bully, they've tried to blackmail, they've tried to buy off certain individuals to allow them to do what they were doing. But the fact of the matter was that it was illegal, and that's why they ended up getting busted and got in trouble for it. But if we had a little more stringent laws, maybe we advocated for a death penalty option when it came to major drug dealers, then I wonder how many of them would actually want to continue to do it, or whether they would go deeper underground and make it more difficult for people to buy that product. Either way, I see that as a benefit to society. Yes, we have some problems, which is why we need to reform them. Maybe this is an option in order to do that. Appreciate the call very much, Scott. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. I want to get your thoughts on this. Should we allow a little bit more harsher punishments for opioid crisis and for drug dealers in the United States? 22 minutes past the hour. This is the Voice of Reason.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, making it happen today. It is a Tuesday. Hopefully you've adjusted yourself for the daylight savings time. Welcome into the program. 316-721-8255. By the way, today and tomorrow are really your last days to do this. As you know, it is the craziness that's about to begin when it comes to the basketball tournaments, even here in the Wichita area. We do want to talk about that a little bit later as well. But we have our KQAM KGSO brackets available. I have mine filled out right here. I don't know if you need to worry about filling out yours, because this is the winning bracket right here. talk about that $250 at Tad's Locker Room. This is the winning ticket right here, baby. I got mine filled out. You've been able to see it behind me on the wall here in the KQAM studio. I have, just to let you know, in the Final Four, Cincinnati, North Carolina, Duke, and Villanova. I got North Carolina winning this thing. Now, I'm sure everybody would probably disagree with me on that because I am not the most sports-oriented individual, but nonetheless, this is the winning ticket. It's going to be the upsets. It's going to be a great tournament, and we'll have some fun. You can get your copy. It's really easy. All you got to do is fill out your bracket, and the best one out of KQAM, KGSO, the best bracket gets $250 from Tad's at Locker Room. You can swing by Trailers and More. Your Cub Cadet independent dealer, Kent and Roxy Spectacle Shop, Auto Experts with Candace Bodyworks, J&G Flooring and Cabinets, Best Friends Pet Clinic, Auto Tech, Cholita's Mexican Restaurant, Heartland Bicycle, Jewelry Savers, Continental Truck Accessories, Hatman Jacks, of course, Tad's Locker Room, Heartland Avionics, Maximum Outdoor Equipment and Service, PJ Sports Bar, Toppers Plus, Phil's Coins, Davis Liquor Outlet, Design One Upholstery, China's Bar and Grill in Cheney, Bill Mall, Allstate Insurance Agency, Warren and Fiegel Optometry, and Autocraft. We want to thank all of our great sponsors for partnering up with us. All you got to do, it's very easy. Go to one of those participating sponsors today or tomorrow, before the end of business tomorrow. Fill out your bracket. How many actual paper brackets do you get to do anymore? It's kind of fun to do, right? It's a really big bracket. If you're watching the TV, watching the Facebook Live, all you got to do is go to one of those participating sponsors, fill out the bracket, and have it back to them before the end of business on Wednesday. And then as the tournament goes along, we'll be checking them. Winner gets $250 at Tad's Locker Room. Thanks again to all of our great sponsors. Go out and do that, or not, because I already got the winning one right here, because my bracket is going to be the ultimate right here on KQAM. Stay tuned.
When a headline just isn't enough,
Is that all you got?
it's time to wake up the right way.
All right.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, 1480 AM and 1025 FM, KQAM.
Making it happen today. It is a Tuesday. We are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. We've adjusted to the daylight savings, and I mean the light at the end of the tunnel is the fact that it's actually starting to get light outside. It's light outside now. Finally, it's 7:35 in the morning. Therefore, it's going to be a great day, and let's make it a good one ourselves, shall we? Let's carpe diem all over this place and make it an exciting day. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Your thoughts and calls on. I want to get your thoughts on this, and I have to admit, I don't know now, Scott. I know what you're saying, and it's an interesting conversation. I never thought I'd heard anybody try and use the idea of selling drugs illegally as an idea for capitalism. That's not capitalism. We need to remember and maybe we need to do a show on this. We need to remember what classical capitalism actually is, the invisible hand of Adam Smith. When we created this nation of entrepreneurs, and as I've mentioned many, many times before, that we are a nation of entrepreneurs, that we run our economy, and our economy grows based on how well businesses do, based on how much you sink your money into buying products, based on manufacturing companies actually creating a product that you want to buy, based on corporations creating the idea that we can create something, based on the small mom and pop shops. We have those opportunities. That's the greatness. Just look at the Wichita area. We have aviation, we have agriculture, we have a lot of great different industries that are allowing us to go to work. And if you remember, in the way the capitalist system is, it's not slavery, but you go and you get a salary for creating a product, for doing a service. You do that service, you get compensated with the money. The business makes money because it makes a product that it can sell to the consumer, and then you have money that you can buy consumerist items with for yourself. That's how the economy grows. That's what we do. No other nation really does something like that. We are very unique with our capitalist system because other nations historically have grown by consuming other people's wealth, by having a caste system where the people don't need a whole lot of wealth because they're just stuck in that class and they're just stuck that way. And then when the king says that they need more revenue, then they just take everybody's gold. And that's just the way that they work. When you have a dictatorship, everything stays up at the top, and then they let it slowly trickle down to everybody else. It's not the best system, is it? We have different types of tyranny, different type of fascism, socialism, yada, yada, yada. Even on the ones that say that they're for the people, it's really the lords that are controlling everybody, controlling the people, so that way everybody's equal, and they have all the wealth because they need that ability to have that wealth to be able to control, and then everybody else is still suffering and equally poor. We don't consume other nations. We don't take over other nations. We don't consume the wealth of other nations. We create it ourselves. Alexis de Tocqueville mentioned that when he was traveling during the Civil War era and noticed the difference between the North and the South predominantly and said, oh, look, the North is flourishing. It has industry. It has manufacturing plants. It has factories. People are working. They're producing goods. They're doing things. In the South, that's not really the case. They didn't have the manufacturing. It was like a totally different world. They don't have the industry. They don't have the manufacturing. They had the agriculture that was doing well, but they had a different type of workforce, meaning the slaves. And they weren't being as productive. They weren't providing as what they possibly could. Then we add on top of that the taxes and the difference between the North and the South and the voices of them in the government, where the North started saying, all right, you know what, you're producing a lot of agriculture. Let's start taxing that every time that you ship it up to a northern state. And you can see how well that worked. And that's when they said, you know what, we're just going to go do our own thing and see you guys later. And they tried to start a breaking off of an independent nation for the South. We have a unique opportunity here. But I've never heard of illegal drugs and black market drug dealers as being capitalists. That's not really the case. But the idea that President Donald Trump has of wanting to make drug punishments a little bit more harsh for individuals, is that a good idea or a bad idea? I'd love to hear from you on that. 316-720-8255. As we mentioned, many other nations in the world actually do have a lot more harsh punishments. If you remember historically, if we want to go back even towards the ancient Roman times, let's say, you steal a loaf of bread, you get your hand cut off. How many people wanted to steal after that? Unless they were very, very, very desperate. But not very many people actually wanted to go and steal a loaf of bread because then they would have got their hand chopped off. And then how productive could they be in society? And I'm not saying that we need to go back to that mentality, but throwing people into an incarceration over and over and over and over again. Look, I went and I traveled to the Hutch Correction Facility here in the state of Kansas. I toured through it. And it's fascinating to watch and see what they do. And it's all based on incentive programs. And if you do well, then you get loosened up a little bit and you get to have a little bit more free reign and you get to do a few more things. You get to work there and actually make some money, and you get to actually stash money away and you get to buy things for yourself. And it's all incentive based. And if you do something bad, it starts getting taken away. And I like the incentive program, but there's a difference in society between the incentive program when we say, hey, you know what, you're going to do good and you continue to do good, which we have, but then we also need to have on the back end of it as well as when you do something bad, you need to have that slap on the wrist. And if you continue to do these bad things, you need to have a larger slap on the wrist because we don't want you to continue to do it. If it's not a severe punishment enough and you continue to want to do it, that means we need to do something different, doesn't it? For major drug dealers to be hashing out drugs all over the place, giving out pounds of marijuana, giving out pounds of cocaine, having it come across the border and making people addicted to these things, maybe we should make it a little bit tougher for them to do so, and maybe we should make them a little bit more scared. Donald Trump has declared somewhat of a war on MS-13. Good. Donald Trump has talked about building the wall on the southern border. Good. Donald Trump has talked about enforcing immigration. Good. We can start fighting this. When we start making them say, wait a second, I don't want to get caught because this is going to be very, very bad for me, maybe we can limit human trafficking. Maybe we can limit drugs. Maybe we can limit or we can minimize these types of things. Maybe we can get people back on track instead of saying, hey, if you're going to do it, we might as well control it. Because that just opens up the door of opportunity for the bad people to continue to do bad things. California is not an example of what we should be looking at when it comes to drug task enforcement. By legalizing everything that they want to, by creating different clinics for you to go and get your drug administered by nurses. Hey, you know what? I'm addicted to ecstasy. Can you put some in me, please? Okay, here's a little bit of dose for you. That way you're not going to die underneath the bridge at the edge of the street. Really? That's what we've come to. No longer do we say, and maybe this goes into the parenthood ideology as well. How many parents out there do you know that are actually wanting to become more best friends and buddy-buddy with their kids than actually a parent and telling them no? Maybe that's bled into society as a whole. Maybe we don't like to be the evil punishment ones because then we're enforcing laws that imposes its will on everybody else, and then we're a bunch of fascist bigots, right? And maybe that's what it is. Maybe we've seen a little link here. The parents, oh, you know what? I don't want to impose my will on you. If you want to be a different gender, all the power to you. If you want to go out and drink all night, all the power to you. You know what? I'll join you as well because I want to be your best friend. I don't want you to be mad at me. I want you to like me. Maybe we're divorced. Maybe we have a divorce situation. And you know what? I'm going to be best friends with my kid, not you. I'm going to have them like me more than you. So I'm going to buy them lots of goodies and I'm going to do lots of stuff for them. I'm going to make them very special. So that way they want to come to my house instead of your house. And they become best friends as opposed to parents. Maybe that on the grand scale is what we've seen nationally to where we say, hey, you do something bad. We really don't want to punish you because we want you to like me. Vote for me again. You know what? The administration that's in office right now, Republican, Democrat, whoever it may be, we want your vote later once you actually fix yourself. So we're not going to punish you as bad. Instead of saying, you know what? You've done something wrong. You've done it wrong many times, and we're not going to tolerate that anymore. You are not an asset to society. You are actually harming society. You're making other people harm society. Now, if it was all about you and you just did it in your basement and you ended up ODing, it's sad. We could have prevented that. But if you were hell-bent on doing it yourself, then you know what? I guess you didn't affect anybody else. I mean, that's a terrible thing to say, isn't it? We need to figure out ways to actually make our communities better. We can start that at the local level. But maybe this is an opportunity for us with the harsher punishments at the federal level, allowing prosecutors to come after them for a little bit harsher tones when it comes to their punishments. Your thoughts and calls on this, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Also, we will be getting our update from City Council member Mr. Bryan Frye as he is out on location as well with our city update of the week. Let's go to the phone, shall we? 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
Well, that's a heck of an intro. Thank you, Andy.
Well, there it is, Bryan Frye. Let's go ahead and get our city update. What do you say? Making it happen, Bryan. How are you, my friend?
I'm great. Good morning. Sorry,
Hey.
I'm a couple of minutes behind schedule, but we've got a very busy day scheduled in D.C. today.
Hey, no, you're just fine. It's perfect timing. And yeah, you guys are in D.C. and you're talk to us about what you guys are up there doing this week.
So this is part of our annual federal legislative lobbying efforts. We started this about 3 years ago, and we come out and visit not only with the Kansas Delegation, but then also some of the federal agencies that have an impact in Wichita, U.S. Department of Transportation, Amtrak, Bureau of Water Reclamation, etc. So a lot of back-to-back meetings over the next 2 days.
Wow, it's going to be a busy one for you guys. Now, that means here locally, there's not going to be much of a city council meeting today, correct?
Yeah, no council meeting today. Hard to do it when you don't have when the council's all here in D.C. So
Exactly. Now, some of the other cities, are there other city council members that are up there from around the country as well you guys can talk to and pick ideas from, pick each other's brains, talk about what's working, what's not working in different cities?
So there was a conference a couple of days prior to this visit. Mayor Longwell and Councilmember Johnson were at the conference, and that's called the National League of Cities. I chose not to go. I had other work I needed to get done too. But yes, so there is some of that going on there at that conference. But over the next couple of days, it's really more about the cities visiting their delegations and the different branches of government agencies. And so there's not a lot of that inner city communication over the next 2 days. It was at the conference.
Sure. Well, I think our own delegation should be really excited to see you guys, especially I know that some have been working on legislation that would affect us here at the local level, like Congressman Ron Estes with his swatting bill that he's presented nationally. I know we've presented it statewide as well. I mean, with the issue with the Wichita Police Department, I mean, that's something that I'm really glad you guys are up there, and hopefully you guys can have a good conversation with them on it.
Absolutely. We're very proud of Mr. Congressman Estes for bringing that forward on a national level. But, we've got, sales tax, internet sales tax issue that is affecting us. We've got, like I said, transportation issues with the North End Junction there at 235 and 135 that we want to get funding for. Of course, we've got the water project, making sure that we're continuing to fund our water projects. We've got good, clean water for the community. So a lot of different agencies. And then, yes, tomorrow we're meeting with Moran, Roberts, Estes, Marshall, we've got a full schedule. So,
yeah, you guys are going to stay busy pretty good up there. I'm glad you mentioned the online sales tax. It got brought up about a week or so ago. Where are we with that conversation? Is that something that would hit us pretty heavily here in the Wichita area if that ends up happening?
Well, it already has affected us because, there's sales tax that we're not collecting due to online sales. And so it's just not Kansas. There are multiple states that are joining the effort. There's a major Supreme Court case that's being discussed and debated about companies aren't doing it and trying to force some of that collection because it's affecting cities and states across the country. So we just want to make sure that we're going to be able to collect the sales tax that should be attributed to Kansas.
Very good. That's going to be fun. I'm glad you guys are up there. That's really cool that you get to talk to the delegation and that we get to work with the city and our federal elected officials all in one, making our community a better place. There's no city council meeting again coming up today for Wichita. You guys have fun up in Washington, D.C. I'm really looking forward to hearing what comes from that next week.
You bet, Andy. Thank you.
Hey, appreciate it very much. Bryan Frye, City Council member up there in Washington, D.C., talking with our federal delegation. Appreciate that very, very much. So let's take a break. Wrapping up hour number 2. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have breaking news. The big news of the day just came down. Now, this has been teased for a while. I think it's true. This coming directly from the Donald Trump tweet, retweeted by Kansas Republican Party Chair Kelly Arnold. But here's the original tweet from Donald Trump just minutes ago. Mike Pompeo, CIA director, will become our new Secretary of State for the federal government. He will do a fantastic job. Thank you, Rex Tillerson, for his service. Gina Haspel will become the new director of the CIA and the first woman so chosen. Congratulations to all. That tweet coming from President Donald Trump just moments ago at 7:44 this morning. So, President Trump finally making it official. Our very own Mike Pompeo, former congressman from the 4th Congressional District here in Kansas, where currently Congressman Ron Estes currently sits. Now former CIA director, is now Secretary of State for the federal government. Congratulations to our great friend Mike Pompeo on that upgrade, on the promotion, and now Secretary of State for the U.S. government. That news just coming down moments ago. We'll have more information on that in just a bit. Let's go to the phone, shall we? 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, sir. It's Drew.
Drew, what's happening?
Hey, we just got, by the way, you just mentioned in your interview the internet bill, the internet tax bill.
Yes.
If you buy things online, if you sell things online, you need to be paying attention to this, and it's important. Right now, the only thing that the government, city, state, local, federal, whatever, is looking at is how much can they take from you. They are not looking at the overall picture, and we need to get some input into these guys because it's a mess. This bill is a walking, talking disaster.
Sure.
If I'm in Wichita and you're in El Dorado, and you bought something from me, who gets the taxes?
Mm-hmm.
If you're in Nebraska and buy something from me, who gets the taxes? If my company's office is in Nebraska and sends it to you and it doesn't cross the state line, but I was the guy who filled out the paperwork, who gets the taxes? This thing is a mess, and
see, what they're going to do is they're going to want the taxes for everybody. They want the person to fill out the forms. They want the person posting it. They want the person buying it. They want everybody to pay a sales tax because do you realize, and this is going through their filter, their mind, do you realize how much revenue that the government, statewide and federal, are both losing when it comes to sales tax on the internet, with people going more and more and more to Amazon and towards all these different websites, or even locally in local stores that are buying and selling things on there. I used to do that actually. Yes. In college. I helped out our neighbor in Colorado who was actually the Carhartt dealer for the area, and we would sell Carhartt products online online, and we would do it on Craigslist, and we would do it on Amazon, we would do it on Overstock and some of these others, and you could post them and sell them. And people are going more towards that because they can save money on the taxes. Now the government's like, oh, look at all of this revenue that we're losing.
Well, okay, people don't go online to avoid the taxes. And yes, there are companies, a lot of them, that are collecting it. The current way the laws are sitting is that wherever the buyer purchases, that's where the sales taxes go to. But, and to give some idea what we're talking about here, conservatively last year, nationwide, states, you saw about 12% to 14% of transactions done were done online.
Sure.
And so, yeah, we are talking about a fairly decent amount of money. But if they go in Kansas and they go in with the cockamamie bill that they've got right now, that's going to go ahead and hit them, you're going to see that number drop from 12% down to 10 or 8% because of the fact that it's not as lucrative, and the fact that the seller now has to pass that on to the customer. Plus, you take that tax, you add it on to where they're talking about doubling the state property tax, and they're talking about having to add taxes for the schools. We are going to see the economy of the state crater, and the one area that we could be growing would be on the internet, and they're going to go ahead and screw that up too.
Well, come on, Drew. I mean, we need that money, right? The government needs that revenue because they...
It's time for Reason.
Why should we feel guilty for arresting you? Why should we be like, you know what? Okay, you're a chemist, you're a teacher, you're contributing to society. Let's just let it slide. Why? We have laws for a reason, and it makes no sense to me why we would just say, you know what? We need to reform our immigration policy, and it's just too stringent. We're just going to say, rule of law, hey, here's a window. Let's go ahead and throw it out there.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Today, welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 3. The Voice of Reason broadcasting live out of Wichita, Kansas, here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Along with simulcasting on KGPT TV. Welcome aboard. Good morning to you. It's great to have you along on a Tuesday. After the change of time, after getting adjusted, you're finally ready to make it happen. Today is going to be a great day, and that's only because you allow it to be a great day, which is what we're here to start off and make it happen for. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. 8 minutes past the hour. We were going to have a guest from an institute that was studying the tariffs that President Trump wanted to put in place. We're not going to have them on today. They weren't able to make it. We'll get them to reschedule. That's okay. I got an email about an hour ago saying that they were not able to jump on the show and discuss that. So we'll do that at a later time. We may have State Representative John Whitmer call in about 10 minutes or so and give us an update from Topeka. So that's big news there, and we'll chat with him on that one. But until then, it's open lines to you, 316-721-8255. The big news of the morning just happening about 15-20 minutes ago. Big news of the morning is the fact that President Donald Trump, his official tweet as of 7:44 this morning, Mike Pompeo, director of the CIA, will now become our new Secretary of State. He will do a fantastic job. Thank you, Rex Tillerson, for his service. Gina Haspel will become the new director of the CIA and the first woman so chosen to do so. Congratulations to all. The big news announced by President Donald Trump just moments ago. Our very own state of Kansas being represented as now not only the CIA directorship, but now leaving that and promoted to the Secretary of State. I wish him well. We thank him very much for what he's done. We congratulate him on his service, and I think he's going to do a wonderful, wonderful job as Secretary of State. Now, there's been a big movement, and there's been conversation of the fact that Donald Trump can't hold office positions with someone in there for more than a couple of months, and they can't do the job, and he's very bad at choosing different positions and so on and so forth. And I would strongly like to disagree. Mike Pompeo is going to do a fantastic job representing the state of Kansas, which I think we should all be happy and proud about. We have great conservatives that have risen up to the challenge to fill the seats that have been used as Donald Trump has taken them to the administration, and we should be proud as Kansans. But above and beyond that, let's talk about the rotating door that Donald Trump has had in his administration. As you know, there's been a lot of individuals in the administration. And I don't think that's something that we should be concerned about. First off, sometimes you and I like inconsistent government because they're not well organized, which means that they're not going to be promoting a lot of things, which means they're not going to be getting a lot done, which means that they're not going to be taking over our rights. That's a good thing. That's number one, if you want to look at it from that sense. I don't even look at it that sense. I see it as that we're finding the right person for the job. And somebody may look good on a resume to do a job, but then maybe they don't pan out to be able to be up for the challenge. Politicians or lifelong bureaucrats who have been in office for a really long time or been in positions for a really long time get a little relaxed. They get a little comfortable. They don't feel the urgency of needing to get things done. To them, it's just going to work for another day, just doing the grind for another day. And you know what? If we didn't get the legislation today, we'll do it tomorrow. We'll do it after the next election. Let's put out a 10-year plan so people think that we're doing something, but yet we're not quite doing what we need to be doing. There's a lot of comforts in the government. Now, if you want to look at it historically, that's not the way it was intended to be. Intentionally, it was supposed to be you weren't supposed to be a lifelong politician at all. You're supposed to do your service. You're supposed to sacrifice yourself for the greater good by being in public service, and then you go back into the private sector. That's the way it was supposed to be. That's not what we have now, obviously. We have retirement plans where if you serve one full service of your term as a congressman or woman, then you automatically get retirement for $100,000+ a year for the rest of your life, not to mention government benefits on health care. That's the way we're set up now. So all you got to do is do one term and you're good, and you're golden, baby. And that's not the way that it was intended to be. And when you get to that point, then you're not necessarily looking to do the greater good, and you are to some degree, but you're not necessarily looking for the greater good all the time. You're looking to continue to stay in that position, what you have to do for the administration, who you have to work for, what promotion you have to do. It goes on and on and on. I kind of like the turnaround in the rotating door in President Trump's administration. Now, some of it could be is because he's a type A personality, and if you can't work with him when he snaps his fingers and wants you to do something, then you're not fit for the job. And some people can't handle that. And maybe that's why we've had some of the rotating door. Maybe some of it's because he wants to go a certain direction. Others don't want to go a certain direction. And maybe Donald Trump just says, hey, you know what? I'm going to find somebody that wants to do what I need them to do. Maybe that's a part of it. But what really comes down to, and I like this fact, is the fact that we're finding someone, as Donald Trump has done in the private sector as a business owner, is finding someone that can do the job right. That's going to put the work in, that's going to work really, really hard doing it, and he can see it. Look, most businesses, most company owners, most employers, most of them can see when you put in the work and the effort, they're going to be happy with you. Most of them. When you go to work today and there's a difference between you sitting at your desk and just kind of filling the seat as opposed to running around doing the job, running here, doing this, doing that, picking up the slack from somebody else, helping somebody else out with their project, running around, talking to the owner, talking to the employer, letting them know what your projects are for the day. When they see that, then when you do slip up once, it's not going to be a, hey, what the heck are you doing? It's a, hey, you know what? It's all right. Let's get this fixed. Let's do it. Let's work on this together because we see what you're doing. We see the effort you're putting into it. There's a big difference in that. And work ethic today, for some reason, seems to be going out the window. And that's what I don't want to see. And maybe that's what's happened with many of these bureaucrats. How many of them? I mean, we read the story. If you read the Trump book from Corey Lewandowski, the campaign manager from the first Trump campaign race, if you read the book, Let Trump Be Trump, they talked about going into the White House. And the White House staff they're bureaucrats. They're on the public dime. They were playing solitaire. They didn't have the get up and go. They weren't showing up on time. They weren't working very hard. And you know what? Clean house, baby. It's time to get somebody new in there. That's what we have to do. Rex Tillerson, from the little bit that we know about him, has done a great job as Secretary of State. But I know that him and President Trump bumped heads once in a while. They butted heads and they fought and they bickered about back and forth about certain policies that he was talking to or different things that he was saying to different countries and their ambassadors or their agencies or whatever. And there was a big difference in idea. Doesn't mean that he was bad. It just means that now Donald Trump wants a change. Mike Pompeo has been a solid leader. He himself really ran it from the way that we've heard from the internal words is that when he was congressman, he ran it like a business. That you worked very hard, You did not have that bureaucrat mentality of just relaxing and just slacking off a little bit. He didn't like that. He didn't tolerate it. He ran it like a business or like the military because he wasn't the military. That's the way he operates, which is why he's been very successful as a congressman. He's been very successful as the director of the CIA, and Donald Trump sees that being the mindset of the business owner of, hey, there's an employee that's a huge asset. Let's utilize him. Mike Pompeo, come be my Secretary of State. We'll get somebody else to fill in for the CIA directorship, and we're working on it. We'll weed out the bad ones. We'll give them a test, give them a few months to see if they can do the job. If they can, then fantastic. If not, then we're going to find somebody else. I have no problems whatsoever in any way, shape, or form with Donald Trump saying, you know what, let's change it up a little bit. You know what, we got high rotation. That's okay. I have no problem at all with him wanting to mix it up a little bit, wanting to keep it fresh. I like that idea, honestly. I love the idea of us wanting to make sure that if someone's going to be in position, they're going to be doing a good job and they're going to be working hard. They're going to be not playing the bureaucratic game and they're going to be productive in that position. 316-721-8255. Let's go and take a break. When we come back, State Representative John Whitmer will be joining us, giving us an update from Topeka. But our congratulations and our happiness to see Kansas being represented properly with a hardworking, very solid conservative like Mike Pompeo representing us from the 4th Congressional District. Congratulations to Mike Pompeo, former CIA director, now Secretary of State for President Donald Trump. Congratulations on that. Let's take a break. When we come back, John Whitmer going to be joining us. This is The Voice of Reason.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason. It is officially one day closer to the St. Patrick's Day, don't you know? We are a little excited. Friday, we're going to have our special program on St. Patrick's Day for Friday. Yeah, I know it's on Saturday, but we're going to celebrate it here on Friday because that's just what we do. You better wear your green. Actually, I kind of made it our company policy that we need to be wearing some form of green every day this week leading up to St. Patrick's Day because it's that exciting. So that's what we're going to be doing. Welcome into it on a Tuesday here on The Voice of Reason. 316-721-8255. On the phone with us, broadcasting out of Topeka, giving us an update from what's happening in Topeka with our state legislature, breathing in the toxic fumes, so to speak, when it comes to the politicians and the weird air up there. State Representative John Whitmer on the line with us here. John, what's happening, my friend?
I'm a freshman.
Oh, is he there? John!
They're all 8th graders. Good luck in high school.
John Whitmer.
Yes, I'm sorry. You got us. We're talking to I have a bunch of pages in my office this morning.
There you go. See, you're just a busy guy. You're already up in your office in Topeka. You're having a lot of fun trying to breathe in the toxic fumes of Topeka when it comes to politicians, and you just got a crowded office there. We appreciate you joining us here for a minute.
I do. In fact, I have 6 pages from Cheney and Clearwater. Everybody say hello to Andy Hoosier. Hello.
Hey, there it is. I love it. Welcome aboard, everybody, onto the program, and you are on the radio right now, so have a little fun with that one. You guys have been busy up there the last couple weeks, so to speak, as the only stories I'm hearing, John, right now is that we're going to pass an online sales tax and that we're going to increase property taxes, and then, we may increase income tax rates as well. Is any of this true?
It's true that we've heard those. I'm not on the tax committee, but yes, the tax committee did vote and did pass out a proposal for an internet sales tax. They have had hearings on raising property taxes it's essentially 20 mills, which for folks like the folks here in my office from Clearwater, that's essentially a 100% property tax increase. That's for the moms in the room are like cringing at that. And there has been some discussion of income tax increases. And the sad part is, and I just sent out my latest newsletter, so I'm actually referencing it here. We've had tax receipts for February totaled $373 million. Which is $41 million above February of last year.
Sure.
We collected $27 million more in taxes than anticipated, and yet they're still discussing raising taxes again. So I don't understand this. why, if we're bringing in more revenues than we anticipated, more than we need, there's still discussion in this building about raising taxes.
Well, it boggles the mind because the last story that I saw when we saw the tax revenue being higher than projected is that it's been higher than projected 9 months in a row now. And, of course, they only count that starting July when we passed the retroactive tax increase. They forget that we actually had tax receipts higher than projections during Brownback's time around this time last year as well. It wasn't as much as what we have now, but it was still higher than what was actually projected. We see more money coming in because, oh, shocker, the economy's doing well, and yet we're trying to raise more taxes to try and kill off that incentive for the economy to grow. I just don't get it, John.
Oh, Andy, it's worse than that. Total tax receipts are $612 million above where they were last year at this time. So you consider all kinds of benchmarks like that. You do see the economy recovering. Unemployment is low, and yet we're going to do, well, the discussion potentially is to do something that would be catastrophic to the economy. You know, I talk to farmers quite a bit. I just have done now 3 town halls in the district over the last month. And the last thing that farmers could endure would be a property tax increase. The last people want, we already have an aggressive sales tax that's highest in the region. We already have a high food sales tax. Mm-hmm. The last thing we can afford to do is turn around and raise taxes again. And yet, the folks, many of my colleagues don't understand that we have a spending problem. We don't have a revenue problem. But, you know, it's like sometimes I feel like Don Quixote up here, but it is what it is. And
well, we'll continue. Well, yeah, I mean, we'll continue to fight the fight and lead the charge the best that we possibly can and see what actually comes out of it. The question is that, though, with the midterm elections right around the corner, will they continue to try and push for that for this session, or will they say that, well, the economy is okay, we'll kind of squeeze through this year, and then after the election, then we can start talking about the major tax increases?
Not with my vote, they can't. But, I mean, I don't know where else you can raise taxes anymore. And I think we're at that tipping point, and there are many of my colleagues, I think, that are finally coming around to, if we really want to grow jobs in this state, you can't continue to keep raising taxes in any way. And we've done efficiency studies, we've looked at it. There are ways that you can find reasonable reforms and reasonable ways to save. Whether it be consolidating the Department of Commerce and the Department of Labor, looking at just basic, systematic ways to reform and find efficient spending measures without going back time and time again and asking people to take more of their hard-earned money and send it to Topeka because some up here think that we know how to spend your money better than you do.
Sure.
And that's really what it comes down to for me. It's not our money. And until we realize that it's not our money and stop spending it, I think that's what it's going to have to come down to.
Let's shift gears a little bit. You mentioned that you have an office full of individuals right now from around the area. Talk about what's on the plate today. What do you do? What kind of project are you working on up there?
So I'm working, in fact, Thursday of this week, I will be running on the House floor an amendment to lower the sales tax on food. There's a bill that's on the House floor for debate Thursday. I will be running an amendment to lower the sales tax on food. And it lowers the sales tax on food by 2.1%, and I'm doing that by...
Here, I can come back. I'm take you off speakerphone since they've had to run down and take their pictures with the lieutenant governor. So.
There you go.
So I will be able to do that on Thursday. Today, actually, we're hearing the swatting bill that passed the House. We're hearing that over in the Senate today, so I'll be testifying in the Senate.
Very good.
And we actually have a bill in Fed and State next week that some view it as controversial. I do not, but it will protect the religious freedom rights of adoption agencies. I think it's a pretty non-controversial bill, to be honest with you. But if you've got the private sector, Catholic charities, these organizations that promote adoption, the state shouldn't be dictating to them who they adopt out children to. Mm-hmm. And all this does is it preserves their right to say that they want to protect who they adopt families to.
Sure.
And so that's a bill that we're hearing next week. There is a comprehensive school safety plan that I think you're familiar with, that I'm part of the task force that the speaker set up. We're working on that right now. That includes the Eddie Eagle and some other safety measures for schools. So there's quite a bit going on. And then, of course, as I'm sure you know, Thursday evening, Friday morning, we will get the report that the House and Senate leadership commissioned on school funding.
Sure. Busy man.
That'll be a big deal.
Exactly. I mean, that's going to be really big to see. Actually, maybe we can get some traction when it comes to education after this week once that report comes out. Busy man up in Topeka, State Representative John Whitmer. I know that you're busy, my friend. I appreciate you jumping on for a few minutes with us. Keep up the good fight, and we'll check in with you again here in another week or so.
Thanks, Andy.
Hey, always a pleasure there. That's State Representative John Whitmer right there. Bottom of the hour news. It's Open Lines U for the last half hour. When we come back, lots to get to today. It's been kind of a fun one. We'll continue it on as we wrap up the show today right here on The Voice of Reason.
Republicans and Democrats accountable. This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Wrapping up the show. Welcome back into it. Great to have you along today. It is a Tuesday, broadcasting right here on the Big Talker KQAM. We love having you with us. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you're going to join into the program, you're more than welcome to do so. A reminder for you right here on the KQAM airwaves today, sometime between 12 and 2. Between noon and 2 during Laura Ingraham. We had our first winner yesterday, but Disney on Ice tickets are available to you. The show is next week, 22nd through the 25th. Your chance to win a pair of tickets is right here on KQAM. All you got to do is listen during Laura Ingraham from noon to 2. Wait for the sounder. And you know it. It's very easy to hear. It has all the different songs from all the different Disney characters, and then it says call now. You call the studio, be caller number 1. We'll get you a pair of tickets. You can see all the great different classics that your little kiddo may like, from the princesses to Anna, Elsa, and Olaf, Moana, Dory, and Nemo. Doesn't matter who you're actually looking for. They have it right there. It's going to be Disney on Ice next week. Your pair of tickets is available right here on KQAM, the KQAM airways. Just listen for the cue to call the sounder during one of the breaks. Call in. We'll get you a pair of tickets for it. It's going on all this week through Friday. Next week is the actual concert. If you want more information, go to IntrustBankArena.com, IntrustBankArena.com, or get your tickets at SelectASeat.com. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. The big news, as you know, was that Mike Pompeo, that's the headline on Drudge Report right now as well. Pompeo takes over State Department. Trump names first woman spy chief. And then, of course, the picture of Rex Tillerson that says, "You're fired." Now, I don't know what beef that went in between them. It may be bad. It may be just the fact that he wants to change. I'm assuming that maybe they just butted heads one too many times. Maybe they wanted to just, I don't know. Who knows and who really cares? The fact is that I'm okay with the changes. And congratulations to Mike Pompeo on that. Now, what I am seeing, as we're seeing the changes, we're seeing a different dynamic within the Republican Party. We're not sure what conservatism is right now when it comes to the norm. We're not sure what moderate republicanism is when it comes to the norm. Everything's kind of up in the air at this point. And going into a midterm election, the Republican Party itself is very, very scared about that. The Republicans have done a very good job in the past of being the obstructionists and saying that get us in power so we can stop what they're doing. Not necessarily having a plan of their own. And that's been the flaw of the Republican Party. Everybody's got their Achilles heel. That is the Achilles heel of the Republican Party that has been historically of them saying, struggling a little bit. Let's obstruct, but let's not have any plans. Let's not have any ideas. Then when we do get into power, we don't know how to actually be the leader and promote that idea and then actually be able to say, look at what we've done. Donald Trump took that charge. For the longest time, the Republican Party's been kind of waiting. It's been this it's been the orb, so to speak. It's been what was that? What was that Robin Williams movie with the Jell-O stuff with the green little things? Flubber. That's what it was. Maybe it was the Flubber. It was just the that's what it was. That's what the Republican Party has been for a long time. We're just sitting there. We have our ideas, not sure how to actually become the leaders to promote that idea, not sure how to widen the umbrella of Republicans to teach people what conservatism actually is, how important it is for your independence and for your freedom and for your personal responsibility, and so on and so forth. We were just the flubber sitting there. just going about our business. Donald Trump said, I see an opportunity, as he does a business leader, took charge and said, this is what Republicans are going to do. We're going to spend on infrastructure. Not necessarily the best thing of what conservatives usually like, but he took charge doing it. We're going to repeal Obamacare, and we're going to get it done. We're going to do tax breaks. We're going to get it done. We're going to X, Y, and Z. We're going to build the wall. We're going to enforce immigration. We're going to come down on the states that want to become sanctuary states. We've done all of the... He took the charge. And it's a little bit different flavor of republicanism of what we're normally and predominantly used to, which isn't a bad thing. It's just a little different. And we need to weed out on conservative principles what's right and what's wrong. Infrastructure, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of something like that. Placing tariffs on companies, yeah, or on trade, yeah, not the biggest fan on something like that. It's going to harm our manufacturing and our industries. Nonetheless, enforcing immigration, building the wall, repealing Obamacare, doing tax cuts, X, Y, and Z. He's doing wonderful things. Making the capital of Jerusalem the capital of Israel, putting our embassy over there. We've got some good things. The question is, will Republicans try and back him and support him and actually follow along with the Trump administration right now to get reelected in the midterm elections? Donald Trump's approval ratings just went up higher than Barack Obama's this late in the game when it comes to the administration. That shows that we're doing something right? People are going back to work. The industry is going back up. You have more money in your pocket. You have less taxes coming out. Things are changing. You're doing better, right? You're doing good. You would be happy with that. So when you get that call from Gallup or from Rasmussen or for somebody saying, hey, what do you think of President Donald Trump? Then you would say, yeah, you know what? I'm pretty happy. Things are going well. I guess he can be to credit that. Then you see on Drudge Report as well, and here's some of the headlines I'm seeing. Pennsylvania, this close. Republican rush to avoid upset. Anxious about local Dem victories. Panicky Van Jones pleads to Oprah for help. Okay, let's focus on the Republicans. Anxious about local Dem victories. Republicans have predominantly done better in local elections, whether it's city council, maybe not city, because the cities, larger cities, obviously have more progressives than Democrats. But for counties, for state legislatures, for sure, we dominate. But if we're starting to see that tide of blue waves coming across the nation, what do we do to stop that? You can do two things. You can embrace your republicanism that has gotten you this far already and defend it, and not only defend it and stay on the defense, but go on the offense and say, look at your life right now. You're succeeding. You're rising out of poverty. Maybe you were on social programs and you're no longer on social programs. Maybe you've been unemployed for years and now you're actually working, and maybe you're doing great things. That's from conservatism. That's from Trumpism. Or you can go the other way and say, you know what? I'm going to distance myself. That's not the Republican Party that I like. That's not the Republican Party that I support, and I'm going to try something different. If you do that and you tried that option B, you're probably going to lose. Just throwing it out there. You're probably going to lose. If you remember, the midterm elections, what was it, 2012? Barack Obama was in office. He was losing support. He didn't have the approval ratings. Nobody liked what he was doing. Everything was, other than his diehard supporters, everybody was upset about his agenda. He was advancing Obamacare that was very unpopular at the time. He was raising taxes and raising regulations. He was just writing things off and using his phone and his pen, just going about his business. And it was hurtful to the Democrats because he was just kind of doing his own accord. Whatever his own personal heart desired, that's what he was doing as president of the United States. Not tied necessarily to the party. If you remember, the party has a lot of control over an elected official. Good, bad, or indifferent, that's the reality of it. And all the Democrats at that time during that midterm election, they shied away from Barack Obama, saying, yeah, I'm a Democrat, but I'm this style of Democrat. Yeah, I don't really care for what Barack Obama's doing right now. I'll try and work with them a little bit, but we're going to try and go a different direction as a Democratic Party. And guess what? They lost big time. 2012, the midterm election, was when Republicans had the largest majority since World War I or World War II. It was insane how many seats that Republicans won in mass because they were the obstructionists. They were going to stop him, while the Democrats weren't getting in their way to block it because they didn't go along with the agenda of the party at that time. Back in 2008, John McCain, coming off the administration from George W. Bush. John McCain, now regardless of what bad candidate he was already, what did he say on the campaign trail? We're not going to say, yeah, I'm different from George W. Bush. I'm a Republican, but yeah, I'm a moderate Republican. Yeah, but I'm not the same as George W. Bush. I'm different. We're going to come in here with a fine-tooth comb, and we're going to come in here with a scalpel, not with a hatchet instead of a hatchet when we come in to deregulate and cut the government. We're not going to do that. We're going to do it fine-tuning. And everybody lumped him in as the same as George W. Bush. Barack Obama ended up winning because it was a change. We're going to do something completely different. We're going to do 180 degrees, and we're going to go this direction. The American people, they love change to some degree. They're weird like that. We're weird like that. We like change, but we don't like change. We're traditionalists, and we like the same, but yet we want something different. We wait, and we wait, and we wait until we're so frustrated and angry that we end up doing 180 degrees, the pendulum swings, and we do something different. And then we take it, and we take it, and we take it, and we try and justify and justify and justify, and we try and do whatever we can to make ourselves happy until we get to the point where we're frustrated, and we're angry, and we're really upset, and then we swing the pendulum the other direction, and we go 180 degrees. That's why in the state of Kansas, for the governorship, every 8 years, for however long, we've gone Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrats, back and forth, because we hear things, and we're upset, we're angry, and we end up changing it. Republicans are afraid that pendulum is swinging again. But what we have to do is not try and shy away from what our values are, but what we've actually done to succeed. Show the optimism. Show the happiness. If you remember the campaign ads from Ronald Reagan back in the 80s, when he was running for re-election, he didn't go on the attack of his opponent. What did he do? He ran ads about how great America was right now, how people are back to work, how they're happy, how the family values are back together, how the family's living happily together, how we're doing great things, the economy's coming back up, and people have opportunities for jobs, how we're not in poverty anymore, how great things are happening right now. And he won by a landslide. That's what we have to do. If we're going to win these midterm elections, which I am not concerned about these midterm elections unless we shoot ourselves in the foot. There are very few fringe extremist progressives who want to cause harm to society. There are very bad people out there, and yes, I will call them bad, because they have very terrible ideas that have proven to have failed time and time again. And they're running on those, and the few that actually like it have a very loud voice. And we can respond one of two ways. We can either be silent and let them ride it out and hope that they lose, or we can yell just as loudly about our conservative values, and not only yell about them, but show the example of step out of the way, let the car be seen behind the display, and say, look at the beauty that we've created because we've done something awesome. And we can do that. Republicans anxious. Republicans rush to avoid. Republicans sink money in. Republicans anxious about this. Republicans panicky about this. Why? Democrats have not won anything of value. Progressives have not won anything of value. Even with the momentum, quote unquote, that they say and they claim that they have not changed a federal seat yet of value, of one that wasn't already anticipated for them to win. And the one that they did, which is in Alabama, it was from personal attacks and from the slander they created, as opposed to an actual policy issue. They didn't win on policy. They didn't win on value. They didn't win on their foundation. They didn't win on an ideology. They won on personal slander to personally attack their opposition. And they're going to try that. But conservatives, don't back down. Republicans, don't back down. Don't be scared. Don't waver. Don't panic. It's going to be okay. We're still going to win the races. The big blue wave that happened in Texas with their largest turnout since however long ago, guess what? In the general election, they still got their butts whooped all across the board in every district that they didn't already have. There was no shock. There was no shock and awe. There was no big blue wave. Other states as well. Pennsylvania is a swing state. Swing states are going to go back and forth because there's just enough on each side of the aisle. It's those moderates, it's the independents, it's the few that's in the middle that we just don't know what side they're going to go because they're too squishy to figure it out. They are the flubber. They are the blob, and we don't know exactly what they're going to be or what they're going to support. It's not time to panic. It's time to just step up our game when it comes to expressing what conservative values really mean. The fact that we're going back to work. The fact that we actually have more money in our pocket. The fact that we're repealing a disastrous Obamacare plan. The fact that we're actually going to start enforcing immigration. The fact that we're going to define what constitutionalism may actually be again. We have that opportunity. The fact that you have the right to voice your opinion on any issue because you have the right to freedom of speech. The fact that we're not going to try and take away firearms under the Second Amendment because someone is scared emotionally, and that we're going to listen to 16-year-old kids talk about how we need to take away guns because they don't feel safe. We're not going to allow that to be the dominating dialogue in the discussion today. We can take back the conversation, and only we can do it because, again, like I've said many times before, if we don't do it, no one else is going to, because we have a lazy society. That's just a matter of fact. This is The Voice of Reason. 10 minutes at the top of the hour. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
I've been a wild rover for many's a year, and I spent all me money on whiskey and beer. But now I'm returning with gold in great store, and I never will play a wild rover.
Welcome back in. Wrapping up the show today. It's gone by way too fast. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us today. Good morning to you. Better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even an energy drink. Yes, right here on The Voice of Reason. We got a couple minutes left. If you do want to chime in, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK if you want to join in. I do want to remind you one more time again before the show is done and over that, as you know, not only is St. Patrick's Day coming up on Saturday, but also this weekend is the kickoff to the basketball tournaments. Yes, you know which ones I'm talking about. Even here in the Wichita area. Tomorrow, we didn't get a chance to do it today. Tomorrow I have some fun stories with the basketball tournament coming here to the Wichita area, but you have an opportunity to fill out your bracket, have an opportunity to win some money, win some goodies with Tad's Locker Room. $250 from Tad's Locker Room, and all you got to do is go to our participating sponsors, fill out your bracket, and you can get a chance to do that. And that's with Trailers and More, Kent and Roxy Spectacle Shop, Kansas Body Works, J&G Flooring and Cabinets, Best Friends Pet Clinic, Auto Tech Service and Audio, Cholita's Mexican Restaurant, Heartland Bicycle, Continental Truck Accessories, Jewelry Savers, Hatman Jacks, of course, Tad's Locker Room, Heartland Avionics, Maximum Outdoor Equipment and Service, PJ's Sports Bar, Toppers Plus, Phil's Coins, Davis Liquor Outlet, Design One Upholstery, China's Bar and Grill, the Bill Mall Allstate Insurance Agency, Warren and Fiegel Optometry, and, of course, AutoCraft. All of those, we appreciate them partnering up with us for this brackets. Scott Stiles in studio here from the sports side. I filled out my bracket.
I saw that.
This is the winning bracket right here.
That's going to be toilet paper in about a week.
Now, this is the winning bracket right here. Now, I do have KU moving on to, what is it, the Elite Eight.
And we just had the associate head basketball coach from KU on the show.
Oh, fantastic.
Curtis Townsend, who they said he'll practice today, and then they're going to fly down here tonight. They'll stay in the hotel, take the team out to dinner, and get ready for the shoot around at 12:30 tomorrow at Intrust Bank Arena.
Very good. I got Wichita State going to the Sweet 16.
Oh, boy. They'll lose to West Virginia.
You think so?
Yes.
You think they'll lose the West? I think that they could squeak it through.
Okay, I'll come back in here on Tuesday, and we'll discuss that once more.
But in my Final Four, I have Villanova.
Okay.
Oh, come on. They're pretty good, aren't they?
They will be the first number one seed to lose.
What?
Yes. Go ahead.
Duke.
They got beat by North Carolina in the semifinals of their own tournament.
It's going to be an upset.
Okay.
North Carolina.
You just said them.
No, Duke.
Oh, Duke, yeah.
Yes, North Carolina.
Possibility. That's pretty good. That's the first solid one you got.
In Cincinnati.
Oh, my God. Where's Virginia? Virginia's the number one overall team. What do you have them going out at?
I have them losing to Arizona.
Okay. Arizona's playing well right now.
And then Arizona and Cincinnati, with Cincinnati beating them going into the Final Four.
Wow.
There you go. And then I have North Carolina winning the whole thing.
I like it.
This is going to be the winning bracket right here.
Right. Take the pencil away, write it in pen.
Might as well get that $250 from Tad's Locker Room because this is it right here.
And then after that, send it into Warren Buffett and win $1 million. If you get them all right, you win $1 million. If a Nebraska school wins it, which is the only school will be Creighton, which no chance in hell, you win $2 million.
Well, you know what? It's going to happen. This is it.
Okay.
I'm excited for it. Did you fill out yours yet?
I'm doing it tonight.
Doing it tonight.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
If anybody, with all of our participating sponsors,
participate.
Yes, go out, fill it out. You have until the end of business tomorrow to do so. We've got a couple of days to do so. It's going to be a lot of fun from KQAM and KGSO. Scott, always fun, my friend.
Oh, great, Andy. And get out there, fill out those brackets. Tad's waiting for you to come spend some money.
That's going to be a great
Free
time.
money.
As always, this is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is The Voice of Reason. Have a great day, everybody.